it's me, it's the one and only Paul Friends, welcoming you to Starfleet Universe On Call. And tonight, it's, well, me. Barry's not here. Gary's not here. Well, you never know about Gary. He might show up late. But doesn't matter. The important thing is I am here. We started the podcast. And welcome anyone who wants to watch or listen to my melodious voice. I welcome you. Tonight, actually, I'm going to do something which I've been working on. I got some pieces. I got a little bit of pieces started. Obviously, it's not completed or anything like that, but that's why I titled this one "Ideas for a Web-Based Client." Because if anyone's actually read the captain's logs, which I hope you have, because Lord knows the captain's logs are a wonderful item to get, a wonderful item to read, especially the stories and the different ships that are made available. Some of the articles are wonderful. Mine are more like update articles that tell you what's going on. Now, the one thing that I've posted in many of the SFU Online and Starfleet Warlord articles as of late, is the whole idea of web-based clients. Because I'm not sure about you, but I've kind of noticed things, and I've been noticing this actually for years, which is everything wants to be web-based, i.e. the web, the browser as the UI. Now, I understand that in certain cases, that's not a good thing. For example, I don't think you could actually play like Fortnite or Doom. Doom you might be able to do. Because Lord knows, the web browser will become very powerful. And actually some of those capabilities that are in that, I'm not sure what body is making available or saying, oh, we should add this to a browser. We should add this to a browser. And the problem is I see that and go, no, that's not what browsers are for. Because what's the biggest issue with the browser? Security speaking, I'm just going to mention this real quick. And that is the browser is one of the few places where you can download a program, unbeknownst to you, into your computer, and you don't know if it's malicious or non-malicious. You don't know. Just to let you know about that. And the problem is that they want more and more capabilities added onto the browser. So the browser is no longer just a browser. They want, in some cases, Lord knows, Google's one of them, wants the browser to become the OS. The thing that you develop for, and that's the thing that has all the capabilities. It can have access to Bluetooth and all the hardware parts. But the thing is, do you really want that? In my mind, you don't really want everything to be available to the browser. You want to limit it. And the whole idea of a browser, and Lord knows, even Java, the whole idea is that sandbox can be sandboxed. Java can be sandboxed. Most of the time when you're downloading it, it's not sandboxed. The whole idea of applets back in the day was that you could sandbox that. You could sandbox what was happening. You could have it so that the Java applet could only do so much. It couldn't write things to the hard disk. It couldn't do this, couldn't do that. And that's kind of what the whole idea behind the Mac App Store and the entitlements that you do for that, so that you can have it so that an application is limited and what the capabilities that are given to it. Just like actually for iOS apps, the whole idea is that you have to tell them, okay, this is why I need this entitlement, and this is why I need the capability to do this or have access to this API or whatever. For example, I'm sure some of you have seen with iOS the whole idea of that you upgrade to iOS 13, all of a sudden you have an app which has no right to asking you for Bluetooth. It's like, why? Because they were tracking you. That's why. But anyway, okay, I'm sorry. I'm going off the deep end there. But anyway, the web browser as the UI. What's the wonderful part about the web browser as the UI? The wonderful part about the web browser as the UI is I can have it, or any developer can have it, so that their application, their service, in this case, come on, I'm providing a service. SFB Online, Starfleet Worldline, that is a service to allow you to play a game. That's what it is. That's what everyone pays me. When it comes to SFB Online, that's what they pay me for that. They pay me to give them for a subscription so that they can play SFB across the internet against people in a live context. That's what people pay me for. To have the ability to do that, to have the support within that client, within that service, to play SFB. Now, there's some people that would like more. Some people would like to have an AI. Now, let's be honest. You know how complicated that AI would be? It would take me another 5 to 10 years probably to create an AI that could actually play SFB by all of the SFB rules. Now, if we want to have it so it kind of limits itself to basic rules, it might be doable, but still, having an AI can actually play a game like that is not exactly easy. Ask anyone who's created an AI, or computer-based player, basically. It's not easy. Even going way back originally. Well, actually, chess is actually relatively easy because it's a whole min-max problem, which is the computer can actually go through all the different possible permutations of moves. I move here, you have the possibility to move here, here, and here, and you can have it. Obviously, you can have it so that it does it intelligently, so that it can then, at that point, limit the number of moves that it's going to actually to evaluate. That's why in some cases when you do a dumb move, the computer goes, I don't know what to happen. I don't know what to do. How in the world, because to be honest, come on, it's like any other game, chess or SFB, because I've heard of many of really good players, they get tripped up by someone who does a dumb move. They don't really, they're thinking that, unfortunately, they get in this mindset that player is just, they're doing something which is just so strange. Like, what are they doing? What are they doing? What are they doing? I don't know what they're doing. Why did they do that? They did that because they were dumb. Not because they had this super secret plan which you can't figure out. It's because they were dumb. And that just completely, utterly messes them up. So, that's what happens with some of that way, and so AI at the moment, I'm putting it to the side. I really like to, at the very least, create, I'm not sure if you've ever seen it. There's some rules for a robot player for the FedCom. And I actually have a copy of those rules. It definitely needs some improvement, but that's one of the things that to me, FedCom, writing up a computer opponent is actually doable. A heck of a lot more doable than SFB, especially given the complexities of the movement and interactions of SFB itself. Because when do you tractor somebody that you don't? Normally, you tractor somebody, as an offensive thing, to have it so they don't run away. Now, when can you have a computer opponent say, "Oh, I want a tractor"? Most of the time, a computer opponent is for SFB. The only reason they're going to use a tractor is to provide a certain tactic. That tactic is you've got too many drones and not enough phasers to kill all the drones. So you tractor some of them, or if you can't, there's no way of guaranteeing the kills on those drones. Then you have to tractor one or two. The whole idea is to make sure that you don't get killed. So you just have to. that is a tactic that a player can invoke. So, anyway, and getting back to the web-based. Sorry, I'm chasing these rabbits, and I apologize for those of you that are listening or watching at the moment. I apologize, but moving onward. The thing about another great thing about a web-based client is the whole issue of what's happening today. A great example of that, of what's happening, is that I changed the way I package the Windows version of the Java-based client, and now I've got how many people now? Geez, I've had at least 3 or 4, maybe even 5. I know definitely 3 or 4 players say I can't install the latest client, and it's all because of their antivirus. All of a sudden, their antivirus thinks that my client, because I repackaged it, my guess is because I'm using a different JVM. I'm not using Oracle's JVM because I don't want to be required to have a license from them, because the latest JVM requires you, there's a total change in the licensing of it, so that actually you would have to purchase a support plan of it. I'm not exactly sure how much that would cost me. Probably cost me more than I could actually ever ever have people pay for playing SFU Online. So, I changed it to use it's called Adopt Open JDK. So it's the open JDK, because the commercial ones, the commercial grade ones from Oracle, there are certain features that are only available for Oracle, and those features I don't need. There's special, features about that you hook into the JVM and all that kind of thing. It's like I don't need that for a client. Those are only good in my mind if you're going to actually make it available on a server. In that case, and you want to have those special tools available to you. I personally don't care. I've not had that. That's mainly, from my mind, the enterprise-wide servers, the ones that the big hefty ones, But anyhow, so that's one of the issues I ran into. So if I had a web-based client, now instead of having to worry about antivirus, I just have people use their browser. Now, obviously, I will be running into other issues. I trade one issue for another issue. And one of those issues, of course, with web browsers is that not all the web browsers are the same. Dun da da! Big surprise. You've got your Chrome browser, you got your Chromium-based browser, which might be a couple of versions behind when it comes to Chrome, compatibility with Chrome. You've got your Safari browser, you've got your Firefox browser, and that's about it at the moment, really. Because you got Safari, which is based on a rendering engine called WebKit. You've got Firefox, whose rendering engine is based off of, I'm not sure if it's still called Gecko or not. I know previously it was Gecko. I think they redid it, but I'm not sure they still call it Gecko or they renamed it to a new name. And I'm sure there's someone out there screaming that knows about this tech stuff and is just screaming at me at the moment. And I apologize for that. But given that, so the question is going to be, can I write a web-based client that is compatible with all these different browsers? Because unfortunately, they all do things differently, just a little bit differently. Even with HTML5, there are some differences. Now, I'm hoping with what I'm doing with the web-based client that I'm developing. I've done some of the pieces. I know I've got a long ways to do just to make available the minimum functionality that I think is necessary to play SFB online. You know, impulse chart, the ability to launch drones, add ships to the board, have it so that you can do speed plots, do the energy allocation, do all these things that are the minimum that are for SFB online. Now, right now I've been focusing on SFB. The question is, can I make it available? Could I, if I decide to, instead of focusing on SFB, focus on FedCom, would that be a better approach? Maybe. That might be a better approach is work on FedCom, but I started with SFB, and that's the way I'm going to go. And that's just, I'm hoping at some time, maybe by the end of this year, I might be able to have something that's available so people play. There's certain things that obviously that I can drop initially. For example, things I could easily drop. Chat room. I can remove the chat and just ask people to use a separate chat client. That's one way of doing it. Obviously, currently people relying on the integrated chat. I could add chat. It shouldn't be that difficult to do. It just means I have to recreate the back end. The question is, do I keep the current back end, or do I, when it comes to chat and all that, or do I implement my own, chat room kind of functionality? Don't know. I have to wait and see. I might, because there's certain things that I could do if I implemented my own chat. For example, I could keep a full log of the entire game on the server. Currently, I don't do that, but I could do that if I implemented my own chat. And and of course, given the web-based clients, all games would be saved on the server. That's which currently you actually can do in the client. You have the ability to save it online. I give everyone the ability to save up to 10 games as part of their account. Do people use it? I have not checked. And actually, that's one thing I really should do is double check to see if that is working. Because I added that way back in the day for Carl Magnus. Boy, it's been a while since I said that name. And the original reason that he wanted it was because he was playing at internet cafes. And so he couldn't save anything on the local computer. So you could actually install the program. Then, of course, I'm assuming afterwards it would be completely wiped out. But he could then save it online, save his game, and then come back later on and load up, restore the game, load the game and continue playing, which is a wonderful thing. As I said, I'm not sure how many people currently are actually doing that, but we'll just have to. I really need to check to see if that still works. So, part of the web-based client, I would say, is some of the basic functionality. That's needed. Some of that functionality, for example, I'll show you a little something that I've done. This is the impulse chart. I did some really basic functionality, which is the ability to specify a speed plot. It's really basic. In other words, if I start with 20, it says, okay, you're 20 all the way down. Obviously, these color can easily be changed because it's the web, and you just need to change your style sheet. So you can specify the colors to be whatever you want it to be. But go here. Okay, now as of impulse 12, I'm going to move this to 22, and then go all the way up here to 21. Actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, I can do that. I was just wondering. Now note, there's nothing here about it. Doesn't record your speed plot. There's nothing here that tells you, oh, is that a valid speed plot or not? It's the basic functionality first, which is get it so that you can click on a cell, click on one of the boxes, just like you could do in the online client, and then that's going to be the speed from there to the end of the turn. And then you can go up or down, you can change that to go here, and then maybe all the way up here. That's valid because it's double. But anyway, the whole idea is to show that you can actually do a speed plot. And after, obviously there's some more functionality that I need to add if I was going to use this for a speed plot. For, how the question would be, how would this impulse chart be used? Because obviously one thing I probably have to do is do what I did with the online client, which is the current impulse would have to be highlighted. Now, that's when this impulse chart is used for tracking changes, tracking the speeds. And even then, it's one of those things that if you think about it, when it comes to the impulse chart, how often do you look at the impulse chart? I know when I'm playing a game, I rarely look at the impulse chart. Every once in a while I look at the impulse chart. Here's the reason why. Because I want to see, okay, I know what speeds my opponent is currently going at. Whether it's going at 27 or 19 or whatever. And then I go, okay, we're currently at impulse, let's say impulse 10. I know he's moving speed 19. Oh, he gets to move next impulse. I'm moving speed 20. I don't move. And so I can look ahead on the impulses to see when he moves, when I don't move. That's the only time that I've ever used the impulse chart. Because obviously I've used the impulse chart for speed plots, which is the way it's being used here. Now, most of the time in an online client, what you see as part of the client is you just see a strip. No impulse, there's no impulse specified. It just tells you, gives this, is basically this line up here, that's the line for speeds. And what's currently highlighted for that line is the current speeds that are active. What are the current actively used speeds? And so then you know whether, because obviously that stuff gets announced when you go into the next impulse. It announces, okay, these ships are moving, and here's the speeds. Bump, 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 bump. Now, and then in that bar in the client, you'll see that. Actually, let's see, when I do this, don't mind me, I've got lots and lots of it is how I run the client, and when I'm actually developing. Okay, that's shh, don't tell them my password. Okay, let's bring that up. I'll just bring it up in let's just bring up I'm not even online, so if you're online at the moment, you won't see me. Online, and it's a bit online, you won't see me. So, sorry if you're looking for that. But if you notice here, as part, I call this the game control. This is a nice window with, here's the speed bar, which tells people what is the current actively moving speeds. We'll chat here, and then you can do add and you remove, and of course there's filters. That's one thing I think I announced it last week, or I think it was last week, that I added a little filter here, show only unmoved units, which is beautiful because then you can have it so that this list becomes only the list of ships that you have not moved, which is good when you have a large number of ships. And then, of course, you have a way of controlling. You have whatever you have selected here. You can right, left, side slip, head backwards, basically. You know, all this stuff. Now the question comes into being with a web-based client: how much of this stuff do I do? Because with a web-based client, it's a total redo. It's a total redo. There's some elements which no matter what are going to be required, and the tough part is going to be defining what's called the minimum viable product. If anyone is in software development, knows about the whole idea of a minimum viable product. If they don't, they've not been developing for the past 5 years, because that's one of the things when it comes to VCs. VCs want you to first produce the minimum viable product, and the reason why usually you try to create a minimum viable product is this. Minimum viable product means what's the minimum amount of functionality that you need for what the program is designed to do. Now, the reason why you do a minimum viable product, you don't just add features and add features and add features, is because of, one, the idea is to get to the market as quickly as possible. Two, the minimum viable product allows you to then, if the audience points out, okay, you're missing this functionality, you're missing this functionality, you're missing this functionality, you can easily add without possibly having to rip out some stuff you just did, and therefore take it even longer to fix. Or you realize, it also makes you easily be able to pivot is the term. And to pivot, it means change direction. If there's you make a minimum viable product and then you realize your clients, the customers, they're only using this little piece, and this little piece seems to be the main focus. For I was going to say, try and give an example, but I can't off the top of my head. But for example, if I do this, and I notice that I create chat, but no one's chatting. In the client, as part of the web-based client. Guess what? Might as well just remove it, because because obviously people are going to be communicating. The question is, if they're not using the web-based client to communicate, what are they doing? They're using some other one, whether they're using Discord, like right here, or they're using some other method. That could be Discord, could be Skype, could be Teams, could be Zoom. I thought it was Zoom, but actually it might be Zoom, because you can chat there. You can talk, and say for Discord, same way. You can chat, you can talk, you can do whatever you want. And you can have it as a group thing. You can do TeamSpeak. You can do all these kind of ways of communicating in a room and have so people can do that. Now, obviously, there's a big hurdle for using a separate client, but that's not the point here. The point is that looking at what people use and then modifying and focusing and improving the product based on the feedback that you get from the minimum viable product. So in this case, my job at the moment is to figure out what is the minimum viable product, what is required of all the things that are part of SFU Online Client. What can be removed, what can be dropped. For example, one of the things that is not required in the minimum viable product is, of course, the ability to change the colors. That is not part of the minimum viable product in my mind. it's nice to have, and please don't shoot me. Um, the only people that really care about the coloration in my mind, other than obviously there's some people that do, just because they like certain colors and they like a certain color scheme, and that's fine. I enjoy, enjoy what you can do with an online client. Um, Obviously, I'm not tracking you, so I don't know if you're doing that or not. Though I've got to say that I've seen some screenshots where some people have that. That is the one thing that I would love to have input on, because Lord knows I have seen multiple screenshots. Some of them are really weird when it comes to the way people design, well, not design, but lay out their boards. Lay out things like, in some cases, some people don't use this game control at all. They just close it. Because I'm thinking of a Les LeBlanc, way back when. And then what would happen is that he would have the board, and right on the side of the board, he has his chat area. Me, I would drive me nuts, because I like my words to be all the way across it. What happens when you put it over here, you get a lot of wrapping, is what you get. But that's the way he liked it. I'm guessing because he wanted to see more board and less chat. Because to him, the chat wasn't as useful to him. Now, in theory, if the one thing the reason why he did that was, he really didn't care about there's one thing that happens in the chat room at the moment, which is all the announcements. You announce, it announces, oh, this piece was added. It announces this guy changed speed. It announces, someone came into the room, someone left the room. Things like that, which the question is, do people want all those notifications? Is that why he set it up that way? Because in theory, you would love to have it so that there was no notifications whatsoever when it comes to like adding pieces to the board or turning, or the piece on the board turned, or he side slipped, or whatever. I don't know. I obviously that's one thing I probably should do is, and I will look into doing, which is create a survey, probably a Survey Monkey. That's probably what I'll do, and send it out and probably post it up on different places so that I can get some feedback. Now, the toughest part about surveys, obviously, is just plain simple. What do you ask? And like any survey, it's becoming, the presidential thing, the voting and all. And I was just thinking about the polls, because I hear about these polls. This person's the lead, this person, is the lead, depending upon the poll. And I'm always curious. I'm definitely curious about what is the question that they're asking. What are the questions that they're asking? Are the questions that they're asking leading questions? I.e., are they asked in such a way in which the answers that they want to a yes to are kind of being pointed out to them? Because it's frustrating. Because I see these polls, I see these surveys, and I just, it's like, okay, guys, that's great and all. Show me what the questions were, so I can evaluate what were the answers given, and then from there I can then say, okay, was the survey biased in the answers it was looking for? Because obviously, I'm sure everyone knows about some of the polls, because some of the polls are more Democratic, part of lean towards the Democratic Party, and other ones lean towards the Republican Party. And my guess, it comes down to the questions asked on the poll. because if you say, for example, are you, do you consider yourself a patriotic person? Now, that's a leading question in my mind. Well, maybe not that leading, but the idea is that will trigger certain thoughts in your mind. Because who doesn't want to be considered a patriotic person? A person who loves their country. Now, I can understand in some cases when it comes to America, some people not definitely appreciating our country, because depends upon that's that. See, I'm gonna mention this real quick and then I'll move on. Like the whole thing with the flag. Different people, the flag means different things. For me, it has a special meaning. The Star Spangled Banner has a very special meaning to me. The reason why it's a special meaning to me is because I grew up around Baltimore. I've been to Fort McHenry. I understand what those words that were said in that poem, because it was a poem first, by Francis Scott Key, what he said and what they meant and what that really said. Bombs bursting in the air. What were the British doing? They had these cannonballs filled with explosives, and basically they were, firing them over Fort McHenry, and then the idea was to explode them and have shrapnel and killing a lot of men, as many as possible. So, bombs bursting in the air, that is frightening. That these guys in the Fort McHenry are trying to protect the port of Baltimore from the British fleet. And you got these bombs bursting in the air that they're trying to kill you. So to me, maybe it's because I did many tours of Fort McHenry. That Fort McHenry has a very special meaning to me, and of course, therefore, because that's where Francis Scott Key, he was on a boat. He was ship, a British ship that was bombing as part of the bombardment of Fort McHenry, and that's when that song, that poem was written. So that has some special meaning to me, because I understand the history behind that poem that was written, so that has some special meaning to me. Now, some other people, that means something else. That means something that the government or this country. And to that regard, I can agree that the people of this country can be very awful, and the whole and society of this country, yeah. Do we have some unintended bias, especially when it comes to white people? Yeah. Against blacks? Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm doing my best to recognize that, in my own personal life, so, but, there's only so much I can do. But anyhow, moving forward. So getting back to the actual topic again, hopefully I didn't lose too many people with going off on that tangent. But anyhow, the idea is going to be to figure out what, send out a survey which is not looking for certain answers, that be unbiased in those questions, that I want to know the truth, unvarnished truth with no biases. Some of them, I'm not sure if it can be unbiased, but I'll do my best. For example, obviously one of the questions is, do you like having, the current client, or would you prefer that if the client was if you basically used it play the SFU online using the web browser. Things like that. Obviously, what's some of the functionality, and I'd have to list some of the functionality that's currently in the client, and say that you cannot live without that kind of thing. Now, and that's in my mind that is hopefully will give a very unbiased answers, so I can at least give a feeling. I might not, for all those, and of course, for that kind of thing, I'd also have to have a little thing that says other, because invariably I'm not going to mention every single feature that's part of the SFU Online client, because I can't, because it would be a very, very, very long survey if I did that. And that's not the idea, because Lord knows, I know for me, I'm not sure about you, but I hate it when someone asks me to do a survey and ends up taking me 15 minutes just to fill out a survey. I'm more than happy to fill out a 2-minute survey, especially if it's some place which I feel strongly about. Now, I will have to agree, and I apologize. I almost want to apologize for this, because Lord knows, I know that we, as a consumer, a internet consumer, have gotten so many emails saying, "Oh, can you rate us?" They'll ask you for maybe a quick survey. Can you please fill out the survey for it? And I get tired of those surveys myself. For all those places I go to, they ask me for a survey, and it's like, I'll fill them out maybe 50% of the time. Depends. Because Lord knows, if I had a really good experience or a really bad experience, I'll be happy to share it then. If I have a mediocre experience, I'm probably less willing to give a response. Though in some cases I'll do that anyway, just because I feel like I should. But there's a point where it's like, okay, guys, stop sending me a survey. For example, one of those people that keep on sending me a survey is whenever I buy anything from Best Buy, if I ever went into the store, or even not in the store, if I buy something on the website, they send me a survey and just start asking me all these questions about my experience. It's like, people, stop sending me surveys. I fill out the surveys, but there's a point where I won't fill them out anymore. So I don't want to be part of that, and I apologize for anyone who won't fill out my survey that I send out because of that it's just one more survey. I will definitely go through the survey myself. I will time it within reason, because I'm a slow reader. So this will be an honest I'm hoping an honest look at the survey, honest timing of the survey, because Lord knows, I had this one survey which I filled out. It said, "Oh, it'll take you 5 minutes." It took me 15 minutes. And it's like, I got one page, then another page, then another page. It never told me approximately how far into this process I was, which I don't like, because I don't know when it's going to end, which is good and bad. I think the reason why they did it is because it's good and bad. It's good in that, if you think, oh, this is the last page, and you'll keep going, versus, oh, this is the first page of 10 pages. After the first page, when you see that there's 10 pages to fill out, you might go, and not even attempt to start filling out the survey. But at the same time, if you have a half filled out survey and those answers get tallied, the question, are those valid or not? Because there's certain information that's probably in the back end of it that needs to be answered to make sense of what's in the front of it. So anyway, I'll see if I'll make it a very short survey that I send out to people, and including the the email list, post it on email lists, Facebook, discussion board, and hopefully get as much response back on that so I can get an idea of people who are interested in going web-based, versus, because the great thing about, another one of the great things about the web-based is that I can take this, I can take what I've done with this, and I can put it, okay, you can't see it, I have it right here, which is on like an iPad or a tablet or even a Chromebook, because Lord knows Chromebooks are quite popular these days, which just makes them very safe because they're just a Chrome browser is what they are. Now, the biggest issue with the Chrome browser is that it's taking a massive part of the market, and the problem I currently see with the way Google's now running the Chrome browser is they're becoming the de facto standard. It's like Internet Explorer all over again. And that's why TalkShoe, for the longest period, I don't even know if it's, I have not tried it with anything else but a Chromium-based browser at this point. And I still remember when TalkShoe redid their UI, I asked them, I told them, it's broken for Safari. It won't work. I said, you have to use Chrome. It's like, point. Case in point. The developers developed in Chrome, so any features not available in Chrome, I'm only bet I couldn't even use Firefox, which is another browser which is not as popular as Chrome, but I think it's more popular than Safari. So they become the de facto standard, so Google doesn't even have to obey the standards anymore if they don't want to. They can add features and it won't matter anymore. So that's what bugs me about Chrome being the main browser. Now, will I be developing under Chrome? No. Will I be testing it under Chrome? Well, I got to. I ain't got much choice there, do I? Since I did a quick survey, a really quick survey on the Starfleet Warlord group on Facebook. I put out a survey. I gave a list of all of the browsers that I knew of, that within reason. Because I gave Internet Explorer, I gave all Chromium-based browsers like Brave. I think I said Brave explicitly. Chrome, Safari, all these kind of browsers, and to see what kind of answers I got. And most of the people were using Chrome. Why? I have yet to figure that one out. And here's the reason why I say that. Chrome, in my experience, is a memory hog. I'm not sure you probably, I have not, you don't know how, here, this is just the number of windows I currently have up in Safari. This is not the number of tabs. Multiply this by the number of tabs. Now I've got, not too many. Right now, I've got like 50 tabs up. But each tab in the Chrome browser, for me, it takes half a gig of RAM. At least that's my previous experience. Now, do I have a Chromium-based browser? Right here. My Brave browser is Chromium-based. Because of TalkShoe requires it. But I didn't want to use Chrome, so I decided to use Brave because it has the most privacy-oriented features when it comes to Chromium-based browsers. So I definitely did not want to use Chrome itself, so I used Brave, which is a derivative, because it's Chromium-based, which is the open source project for Chrome. Just to let you know, just in case you didn't know what that meant. But anyhow, so I got the speed chart. Obviously, that's going to be a requirement. Now, the question is, of course, is going to be UI. That's the one thing that I was thinking about today, which is the UI. Currently, the UI for SFU Online, yes, that is, for those of you who are watching the video feed, yes, that is the little Java guy from way back when. They still have him. I think it's called Duke. But anyhow, as you can see, you've got all these tabs. See, nice impulse chart. I'm wondering if I might want to do it this way. Because currently I got the impulse chart doing, every other, which is actually, for those of you who saw the old impulse chart, that's what this looks like. Is this one? This one, I like it. That's the way I use it. But weapon status and opponent weapon status. Of course, we can just right click and we can add a piece. Now, if you use a web-based browser, you can't do that. You might be able to do a long press. I have to double check to see what kind of mobile functionality is available. But do an add piece. Let's go. Give me a CAD. Let's add that. CAD. Give me that plus refit. Because that's one of those things that's going to have to happen. Okay, adding ships. How do you bring it up? Don't know. Probably it's going to be like a div. So it looks like a window, but it isn't a window. But anyhow, and you got SSDs. Now, one of the things that this allows for is this floating windows. So the SSD is a totally separate window. Now the question is, when it comes to a web-based online client, would this functionality be available? In theory, I could do it, but and have it so that you can actually have it so that you have the tabs for the whole idea of tabs across the top of the board for that when you're using TouchBase UI user interface, so you can go to the different places. Obviously, this is like logs. I don't think that's one of the things that would be part of the minimum viable product. Notes, not sure, probably not. Impulse chart, obviously it's requirement. EA requirement. Expendables, that's going to be a requirement in my mind because of maybe not storage to begin with, but definitely the ability to select what's going to be the loadout for your ship, what's going to be the loadout for your seeking weapons for a ship. Dang, I didn't realize it had so many. Well, it's a CAD. So it has 6 drone racks, 6 B drone racks, and 1 G drone rack, which is interesting. So, developing it so that it can be a separate window is always complicated. And the question is, do I change the UI here? Obviously, there's a lot of functionality here, like import, export. That might go away. Initially, it wouldn't be part of the minimum viable product. Right. I forgot about that. And you could do all kinds of things, really SSD, apply damage, all that kind of thing. But how would that work in the web base? Will we still have this drop down, or will we do something different? What it will be, I don't think Fleet View might be available. Probably not. But those little features that would not probably be available in the minimum viable product to start off with. But anyway, most probably, how much of the UI do I want to rethink? That's what it comes down to. Do I want to stay with the same basic UI? Obviously these menus go away in the web-based, but how do I duplicate that? Actually, you can have menus. There's ways of doing that. The question is, do we want them? And we can have it so that we have the tabs, possibly even the icons, and just have this whole window as something. Now, do we still have, what I showed before, which is this guy, the game control window? Do you have it anymore? Or do you just have it so that this list now just shows up here on the side of the, side of this, and you can just pop it out. Either leave it there, or just have it so it's, you can pop it out when you want, and then dismiss it when you don't want it. Things like that, which I think could be kind of cool. Now, obviously, the question if it pops out, does it overlap this, or does it then make this scrollable, and then it just becomes a static area over here? That's one of those things that would have to be decided, when it comes to the web-based UI, because this is a total redo. The way that the client looks does not have to be the same anymore. Obviously, I'm sure you've seen it. We can still have some of the keyboard functionality, so that you can go straight up, down, turn. I'm doing that completely with the keyboard here, as you can see, because I wasn't clicking on it. But anyway, that still can be the case. So we'll just have to wait and see about the results of the survey, but also I have to think about how I want the web-based UI to go. Now, there's one other thing I wanted to show you before I wrapped up for the evening, and that is this guy. This is one that actually I worked on first, which is the 3rd gen ships available in the browser. This is not this stuff is not a picture. It is not. The only thing that's a picture in this whole thing is the background. These are actually drawn within the browser itself. Now, I still have to work on functionality where, click here, whatever, click, and then find that's related to that box. The whole idea of editing the ship, that's going to be it's a minimum part of the minimum viable product. That's kind of required. Things like that. But the reason why I wanted to show you this is that this is what can be done in the browser. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are going to look at that and going, that's not impressive at all. And I agree, it's not impressive. But the reason why I implemented at all, and Lord knows it took me a while to do this because of what I had to do, was take the whole ship definition, work on the back end. Basically, that was all part of the client, which has all this code to loading it up, and then save it in a totally different format than it currently is saved in, and have it so that it can then be loaded in the browser. Now, currently I've hacked it a bit, which is that the whole ship definition is part of a JavaScript object. So it didn't actually load it per se from the server. It will in the future. It will, but I just have to add the functionality of loading up the different ship definitions. Because if I had done that, I probably would have done is had a drop down here of all the different definitions that I've created. And the whole idea, I just wanted to show that it can be done. And the great thing about it is that The functionality is there in the web browser that you can do amazing things, which I'm sure you've seen already. If you're even, geez, how many years ago has it been? And I'm just thinking about Google Maps. Google Maps, when it first came out, was the most amazing thing ever to hit the internet. For those of you old enough, and my guess is most people listening to this podcast are old enough. You remember the bad old days or the original days of the web. The whole idea of it's kind of like my website to a certain degree. That is that form-based. You would enter in all this values, then you click the button, and then you'd bring up another web page. All of a sudden, you've got Google Maps come out. And it is an interactive web page. You can click on the map, and then you can click, and then you can drag. So you can drag this map all over the place. And so you actually could follow it. And the thing is, it's not loading up the whole map into your browser. It's loading pieces. And Lord knows if you had slow enough internet access, you saw that. You saw the blocks. The different blocks of the map as it filled those in, as it downloaded them dynamically. Or obviously, if you got too far ahead, if you pulled down too quickly, it would take a little while to grab that data and have it so it actually would then stitch together the image in what you're looking at. And then, of course, then there's the metadata that's on top of all of that data, because I'm willing to bet you, because there's two ways of doing it, and I've done both ways when it comes to the client and the ship definitions, and you've seen them both. Third gen definitions, you've got a background image, in this case the ship, and then these boxes, those are actually drawn. Now the second gen ships, go back to here, tournament, give me add, fed, close. Now, oops, wrong one. Go over here. Look at this. You can see the boxes, the classical boxes, the way it used to look for SFB. Now, honestly, this kind of SSD is really growing on me. I'm sure, I know there's people who are used to this kind, and that's the way they like it. I agree that there's certain aspects that this does not show as well. For example, positions of the weapons. Now, in some cases, I think that can be resolved. Like when it comes to the drone racks, they could actually add more drone B boxes. We could have like some down here, like one over here, a couple here, it's like two here, two here, two here. We could, in theory, that could be done to make it so it's more realistic when it comes to positioning of it. But I'm not sure about you, but I like this background. I think the background's beautiful. Now, moving onward, back to this. See, this whole thing is the graphic. And then when you damage it, those boxes are the only thing that's drawn. The damaged boxes are drawn. This positional information and how big the boxes are and all that kind of thing, that is not saved. That's not drawn. Because Lord knows, like the text here, that's not drawn. That's part of the image. That would be even more difficult to do in my mind, because then I'd have to create my own font or have it so that I can get the font from ADB, because I know ADB uses a certain font for this, and I'm not sure what it's called. You can get fonts that are probably very close, but I don't know what it is. For all I know, it might be a commercial font, which then I'd have to pay for and license and all that kind of thing. But anyway, that doesn't matter. The point is that that's the way it's done for this. Now, my guess is that with Google Maps, it could have done it one of two ways, which is either they're like the satellite image, obviously satellite image, there's nothing you can do. But the question is the rest of the map. When it comes to roads, when it comes to all the streets and so forth, and is that all the streets, are they all drawn, or is it only that the position of those are drawn, and then you have an actual map itself? Which is a bit, an image, a static image. So that's just one of those behind the scenes kind of things I wonder about. But anyway, this is what I wanted to show you. Show you some of the things that I've worked on when it comes to the web-based client. So show you that yes, there actually has been some progress. I need to put together all of the pieces. I've done some of the work. The one thing that I was actually working on earlier this week is the energy allocation definition. Because the actual form, there's actually a definition for the energy allocation form. The whole idea, I got what's called an energy allocation engine. You define the form, you say, okay, these are the variables, because each line has a separate variable. So then you can take that, and then you have to define what kind of row is that. Is it a calculated row? Is it an energy allocation row? Is it after energy allocation row? Because I like for notes. Actually, notes. Well, but definitely about the energy allocation versus the calculator, because the calculator is like the ones that calculate up how much energy that you have. That's completely done via the engine, the energy allocation engine itself. It's not hard coded into the client itself. It's from this definition. This file defines what that formula is how it works. Now, is it super, super powerful? No. It's a very basic, almost could call it spreadsheet per se, but even that is pretty poor. The tough part is I don't think I can do a calculated value of a calculated value. I think I might be able to do that as long as the one calculated value is above the calculated value, the other calculated value. But anyway, I want to show you, tell you that I actually have been show you some results of some of the work that I've done. It's because it's something that I've wanted to do for a long time. I started doing it, and I'm doing this old school at the moment for all you people who've done web-based UIs. And that is, I'm doing this really old school, guys. This is raw JavaScript, raw CSS. I'm not using any I'm not using TypeScript or Elm or any of this other transpilers to convert it from that language into a JavaScript. I'm currently not doing that. Now, I might need to do that later on, when it comes to some of the features, and making it easier to convert some of the code from Java to JavaScript. I might be, in some cases, I might, if I was going to do anything, I was thinking about using TypeScript at the moment. Obviously, there's a new one, which in theory I could look at, which is Kotlin. Now this one, see, Kotlin. But that book is mainly targeting Android. at the moment, but it does still teach you the Kotlin programming language. Um, so I might do that, I might not. At the moment, I'm still working purely in um, raw JavaScript. You know, the one thing that there's one thing that I like doing that with. The reason why I like raw JavaScript at the moment, I like it because of it is lightweight. In my mind, that's the biggest boondoggle, the biggest issue with a lot of these JavaScript frameworks. All of a sudden, you're downloading a multi-megabyte JavaScript framework blob. And you're doing multiple of these for a single freaking web page. Which means it takes longer for that web page to load, to do anything. What's wrong with this picture, people? You know, I understand that a lot of those frameworks make it easier to develop. I will grant you that. But then it produces this awful experience. Now, obviously, that's why they come up with these things called minimizers, which then takes the JavaScript file and shrinks it, basically, is what it does. And the only reason I would want to use TypeScript at all is because of it, there's a lot of static, because it's using a transpiler, it can do static analysis of the code, meaning that it can make sure that the types that you're passing around are correct. That when you're expecting an integer to be passed in to this method, it's an integer. In JavaScript, plain JavaScript, an object's an object. It's totally and utterly dynamic. And that can shoot you in the foot. Because of, that's why they have all those unit tests, you know, that you can run this code through unit tests, and which will then help test that functionality. Now, unit tests are a really good idea. I agree there. But the great thing about having a compiler, even a transpiler, and having that static compilation step, what's wonderful about that is that it can at least verify the first step of the process without a single unit test. It can guarantee you that the types and the constants that are using are compatible with each other, and you won't find something weird in runtime unless you do something weird at runtime. You can do that, but in some cases you lose that safety, and you know it. It's like the whole idea of Rust. For those of you who know anything about Rust, the whole concept of Rust is that when you have a object within that system, within that program, you know what the ownership is. Unlike C code, any number of structures or so forth can, quote unquote, own, have a reference to that. In Rust, only one person is allowed to modify an object at one time. It owns it, and it's the only one who can modify it. And in the meantime, you can't do anything with that object. And that's fine. That's what Rust is. It's to save you from doing something stupid inadvertently. So that's why Rust is a lot more, is actually trusted more than other programming language when it comes to system level programming. And Lord knows, and I've seen some development for like embedded controllers in Rust, which you have to have those embedded controllers have to be solid. So in my mind, Rust is exactly the programming language to do it in. So because you have the ownership model, and the compiler will check your ownership to make sure that you didn't do something funky. Now, obviously, you can override that and say, this is going to be unsafe. I know it's unsafe, and I know that this can bite me in the butt, but I know better than you. Now, do you want to do that all the time? No, you don't. If you go for unsafe a little too often, then you're violating it and it will bite you in the butt. Or you might have to, you really should be thinking about rethinking about how to solve that problem. So, for the little programming information there, and I apologize for those of you who are now just fell asleep. So wake up! So with that, I am Paul Franz, and I bid you a good night.